Oh, hi, everybody, and welcome to episode number 100 of Circle of Fellows. It's our centenary celebration, and I am here with my co host and my friend, Brad Whitworth. Since launching this podcast in July 2015, more than 45 fellows from countries all over the world have participated. We have covered a wide range of topics. Just to name a few, there's been communication skills, certification, crisis communication, communication consulting, global diversity awareness, career building, communication measurement, communication ethics, social media storytelling, the business impact of communication. I will spare you from all 99 topics that we have covered, but we are doing something a little bit different today than our typical episode, and we would like to get that underway. Brad?
Yeah, we're going to be hearing from a lot more fellows than normally make it onto a Circle of Fellows webcast. But for those who don't know exactly what an IABC Fellow is, let me at least explain. The Fellow is the highest honor that IABC bestows on members. It's a body of achievement by a communicator who has had a significant impact not only on their organization and on IABC, but also on the communication profession at large. And in its time, since 1970, when we first handed out an award to a fellow, just over 100 of the world's top communication leaders have been given this superlative designation. It's really considered by IABC to be a career achievement really for the industry. And our fellows are from all over the world, as you pointed out. They're from places like Australia, Canada, India, Italy, Mexico, the Philippines, South Africa, the UK, and the US. And for this episode, we asked our fellows for some insights on the value of their IABC membership, as well as some general advice and counsel for communication professionals at every career level. So for the next hour, Shel and I'll be sharing some of those ideas and input from 24 fellows from around the world. And at the very heart of IABC is its brand. So our first fellow speaks to that initiative. It's Priya Bates, ABC, MC, SCMP from the fellow class of 2016. She's based in Toronto. She was instrumental in leading the IABC branding task force that created the IABC values and brand identity, amongst many other IABC volunteer roles. Priya is a senior communications exec who provides strategic internal communications counsel to help leaders and organizations understand strategy, act in accordance with their vision and values, and contribute to business results. She's a recently published author, president of Inner Strength Communication, and co-founder of A Leader Like Me, which helps organizations build inclusive cultures. So here are her thoughts about IABC.
One of the projects I had a chance to lead as part of my IABC involvement was the Branding Task Force, a group of global professionals who cared about the association and the profession. And that was an incredible exercise. As part of the process to define IABC, its visual identity, and its brand identity, we had talked to communication professionals who are members, those who had left the association, and also had a chance to speak with competitive organizations around the world. And we really fine-tuned what it was going to take to be IABC and create pride in IABC. And I think sometimes there's a real opportunity to reconnect to those values. One of them is we are a global profession, and we need to embrace global and international. The world is getting smaller. We are dealing with impacts of being a global economy. And for us, it is really important for us to pay attention to the changes that are happening around the world, especially from a communication perspective and how they impact communication. That global is so important to me. The second is we're a diverse community. And when we talk about a diverse community, it's not only about race, it's not about just ability, it's not about the orientation. that diversity has become a big part of our conversations in our organizations. The focus on DEI is so integral to us preparing ourselves for a changing future. But it's also about the diversity of the profession itself in terms of how we play in a communications role, whether it's external or internal, focused on stakeholders, focused on customers. Communication is the often cited as the gap between success and failure. When employees and customers don't understand who you are and what you stand for, it's because it's usually a failure to communicate that through actions and words. And a communication professional can play a role behind the scenes to make sure that's happening consistently in an organization. Fourth is that we create connection. And that's the thing that's absolutely incredible. Communication connects the dots from values to behaviors, strategy to results, and brand experiences and brand promises to employee experiences and customer experiences. When that's missing, it is when we simply deliver the tactics, it doesn't really matter. And finally, we focus on insights and results. And that means what we do is more science than art. We are creative. You know, there are parts of our profession that are incredibly creative, and I love that. But ultimately, the creativity only counts when it impacts the results. It impacts the goals. And that's what we see. Business goals that are aligned to measurable communication objectives that then translate into strategy and tactics that then are measured from a bottom line result perspective. And that's the profession of communication. Not just the act of communication, not just the creativity of communication, the absolute bottom line for communication as an integral enabler of success for the organizations we support.
What a great way to start, Priya, putting things in perspective for us. And a brand that she talks about not only impacts an organization, but also the individuals within an organization. And Lee Hornick, who's based in New York City, was named a fellow in 2017, and he knows the power of a brand. Lee's past IABC chapter president of New York, past IABC executive board and research foundation member, and was a recipient of IABC's chair award in 1994.
Lee's a former director of communication for the J.C. Penney Company, a former senior director at the Conference Board, and current director of membership for the Marketing Accountability Standards Board. Here's what Lee told us. Overall, personal branding is more dynamic and multifaceted than ever before. It requires a balance between showcasing oneself authentically while also being adaptable to the ever-evolving digital landscape.
The next fellow that we want to hear from is somebody who's participated in many of our Circle of Fellows webcasts over the year. Jennifer Waugh, ABC, MC, SCMP of the Fellows class of 2014, is based in North Vancouver, Canada. She's worked with clients to deliver ideas, plans, words, and results since she founded her storytelling and communication firm, Forwards Communication, Inc. in 1997. Jennifer's also an adjunct professor at the UBC Solidar School of Business. She's held numerous volunteer positions within IABC over the past 37 years, and she's currently the past chair of the Global Ethics Committee. Jennifer notes how IABC has helped her in her business and with her leadership and development opportunities. So with each IABC opportunity, Jennifer says she has valued community, connection, professionalism, and camaraderie. Let's listen into her thoughts.
Hi there, Circle of Fellows listeners, and congratulations to us all on hitting 100 episodes. In particular, thanks to Anna Willie, Shel Holtz, and Brad Whitworth for steering us to this milestone. I'm Jennifer Waugh, and I'm here in North Vancouver, Canada, and I wanted to just talk to you a bit about the thing that I like talking about the most when it comes to IABC and my work, really, my career, which is the importance of being part of a community, no matter what that community is. I hope for your sake and mine that it's IABC, but whatever it is, I just can't underscore how important that has been to me, from contributing to probably 90% of my business as a consultant over the last 35 years, to recognition, development opportunities in terms of leadership, in terms of understanding the business world better. All of those experiences came through my involvement with the IABC community. These days, I think it's really easy to think we're connected through social media, and even professionally through social media. But I just want to encourage us all to get out and make sure we also have FaceTime, in-person conversations about our profession, about our work, about the ethics of the work that we do and the challenges that we're facing. Those nuances can really only be explored best in person. And that could be everything from a coffee date to meeting up at a local professional development event to coming to a conference, whether that's a regional or an international or national conference, whatever the case may be. Ironic, because you all have joined us on Circle of Fellows over the years virtually, but I hope that you feel a little bit part of this community as I do as a result. I wanted to just highlight a few things specifically because they're kind of the tokens of our accomplishments, but they all have stories behind them. So over my shoulder, I've got a couple of Gold Quill Awards. I've got my original accreditation certificate, and I've got a Master Communicator Award. I've got my Fellows hardware somewhere as well. And while all of those things mean a lot to me, what means most is that when I look at each of them, there's a story behind it. And usually that story has to do with community, connection, professionalism, and camaraderie, really. I've made many of my best friends through IABC. So get involved however you can, and I hope this is a starting point for you, or a midpoint. Thanks for listening.
Great words from Jennifer. Now we're going to travel to the other side of Canada and hear from Martha Mazechka, ABC, MC. She's a principal of Praxis Communications based in St. John's, Newfoundland. She was named as fellow in 2019. Martha helps her clients navigate competing priorities and embrace communication challenges. In addition to her consultancy, she's a champion for the IABC Gold Quill Awards program that Jennifer mentioned, and is a current IABC Fellows Committee Chair. Martha's a strong proponent of IABC and has been a member for 20 years. She's also one of our Canadian Fellows who has achieved a Master Communicator, MC designation. She knows the value of the IABC network, what it adds. She notes, our IABC network is full of great people around the world who are always willing to share what they know so that we can all be the best communicators possible. You know, IABC has a number of long-serving members. In fact, some have celebrated more than 50 years as members of the association. And Shel, I think you work for one of those people who's been a long-time contributor to IABC. And maybe you could tell us about your former boss, Dave Orman.
Absolutely. Dave is the first department manager that I ever worked for. He hired me at ARCO in Los Angeles in 1977, which was the year that I joined IABC. He led a rather large team, and this was back in a day when most organizations doing internal communications were doing house organs, and Dave was leading one of the few departments in those days that was actually strategic and designed to affect the business outcomes for this very large organization. He was my mentor and has had a huge influence on me. He told us he actually began his association with a predecessor organization of IABC in Philadelphia in 1968, and was at the very first IABC conference, the association's birth in Pittsburgh in 1970. Dave now marks 54 years as an IABC member. He moved to LA in 1972. He's now based in San Diego. In fact, I had breakfast with him in San Diego just a couple of months ago. He was named a fellow in 1991 and has always recognized the importance of understanding your audience. He says, remember that what you write or post or print is not communication. It is only communication when it is received by your audience, which means that an effective communicator will be intimately familiar with the perspectives, the attitudes, the filters, the interests, the biases, and so much more of those receiving your communication. Study them, get to know them, understand them. That's your job.
Now, over the years, both Shel and I have had the privilege of getting to know members of the Fellows organization and the association. But one of those people that I get to know pretty well, Marianne McCauley, ABC, was named a fellow in 2013. It turns out that she comes to California wine country, where I am, a couple of times a year to visit her wine clubs and pick up her shipments. She's also been a member for more than 50 years of IABC. She's currently a communications consultant based in Reno, Nevada, a pretty short drive to the Bay Area. Throughout the years, she's held lots of volunteer roles, including one as IABC's former accreditation chair and a former Gold Quill Award chair. She also worked on the Career Roadmap Initiative, along many other volunteer duties. So during her professional career, she's helped many organizations to ensure that people communicate more effectively about their organization's products and services. And she talks about blending virtual and face-to-face communication as key and to keep your mind active. As always, she shares some very sound advice for all of us.
Hello, I'm Marianne McCauley, ABC and IABC Fellow, and a lifetime member of the International Association of Business Communicators. And what I've learned through my experiences is a message that came subtly to me, but I began to notice that the people I most admired and most wanted to learn from were people who were engaged. They were very engaged. They were on committees, they showed up to conferences, they had relationships with their colleagues outside of the association. And today we have the opportunity to be engaged in a lot of different venues, but I encourage you to look how to blend and balance virtual with face-to-face. Because face-to-face, you can't fake it. How many of you sit in Zoom meetings and multitask? But you can't do that if you're sitting in front of somebody. And if you're multitasking, you might miss the opportunity to learn about a new skill, to learn about a job opportunity, to learn about somebody you want to know better. So that all broadens your horizons. It gives you the opportunity to really be a bigger person, have a broader mind, and have a healthier brain. And one of the most important things in life as you pursue through your career is to keep having an active, healthy brain. So I encourage you to be engaged with your community, with your profession, your family. Get to know your neighbors. Get to know your colleagues beyond just that screen, and learn to live a broader life.
Great words from Reno, Nevada. Marianne is one of those people who not only can you hear on Circle of Fellows on a regular basis, but is also one of the fellows who's been a regular contributor of written content. If you want to read more about what people have to say, there are a lot of people who've written books on their own, and there are a lot of IABC publications that contain words of wisdom and profound ideas from people like Shel. I actually am also part of this guy, the IABC Guide for Practical Business Communications, a global standard primer edited by a fellow, IABC's Tamara Gillis. And before that, I think, Shel, you're also in this one too, the IABC Handbook of Organizational Communication. That's the second edition, the purple one. And if you go back a little bit further, you can get the IABC Handbook first edition, the one with the green cover. And if you go back even further, there are great publications with fellows in it. This one, the Inside Organizational Communication book that came out years ago. And I actually found another one way back in the Brad Whitworth library in the back. called Without Bias. It was one of the first publications that IABC did that really dealt with a topic that's so hot today, diversity, equity, and inclusion. But now let's move to another author, Rajiv Kumar, ABC, from the Fellows Class of 2020. He's also written two of his own books, one on entrepreneurship and one on environment, social, and governance, ESG. Rajiv is based in Mumbai. He's been an IABC member for the last 2 decades. His career has spanned many roles, including as a colonel in the Army. He's got a PhD in organizational communication, a Fulbright doctoral fellow, professor in business school, corporate learning and development, just to mention a few. Rajiv is a recognized speaker and has served on many IABC committees, including chair of the APAC region and the Fellow Selection Committee. And he builds on the advice that we just heard from Marianne. He says, do not confine yourselves to gaining only communication expertise. Broaden your horizon and understanding of multiple disciplines that will reinforce your effectiveness and make you more versatile and worthy.
Before we continue, Brad, I do have to share a comment that has come through. Great to see you, Brad. Excellent session so far from Russell Evans. And anybody else who cares to share a comment or an observation or even a question, if you're watching in real time, you can do that through YouTube Live. Since IABC's inception, fellows, like so many members worldwide, have contributed in so many ways, serving or leading committees, whether that be at a local, regional, or international level. Some of the international roles that fellows have helped include within the IABC Research Foundation, the Ethics Committee, the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, the Finance Committee, the Gold Quill Awards, World Conference Program Advisory Committees, and Global Communications Certification Council. And that's just a few of the volunteer opportunities that IABC offers. A number of IABC's fellows, including Brad, have served as chair of the executive board. In that role, each has helped build and shape the association within changing times.
With that in mind, one of the other past executive board chairs we're going to hear from, and we're proud to hear from today, is Brenda Seiler. She was named a fellow in 2017. She's from Washington, D.C., and has 40 plus years of experience in communications. Brenda encourages communication professionals to keep up with their professional development, maintain that base of strong writing skills.
Hi, I'm Brenda Seiler, IABC Fellow located in Washington, D.C. It is my honor to congratulate and acknowledge the 100th episode of the IABC Circle of Fellows. I've been a guest panelist on the program before, and as always, I like to share a few tips that I have found helpful to me in my career. First of all, keep up with your professional development. Even if you're in a situation where somebody else is not paying for it, but it has to come out of your pocket, there are a lot of free things that are available. First of all, try your library to keep up with the technical skills. Do you have a library card? A lot of those programs and trainings are online. Also, don't sell short LinkedIn just because you are a veteran professional. That doesn't mean that there are activities on LinkedIn and connections you can still make. I also suggest keep up with your writing skills. And how would you do that? Maybe at your place of worship, there is a newsletter. Maybe there's a newsletter for your sorority, fraternity, other professional organization, or even for a local newspaper, like a weekly newspaper or a monthly newspaper. And what happens with those items that you find yourself writing? Well, like me, I'm writing for a local newspaper, and I am able to post those on LinkedIn. And then I get other organizations pitch to me for things they would like me to write for them. Again, I'm honored to honor the 100th anniversary of the Circle of Fellows. Keep up the good work, and we look forward to more. Have a great day.
Another of IABC's past chairs we want to hear from is Barbara Gibson, ABC. Barbara was named a fellow in 2020 and has lived throughout the world, now in Italy, but before that, the UK and the United States. And unlike any other IABC member that I have ever met, she was a member of parliament when she lived in the UK. She has a PhD in intercultural communication. Barbara says IABC volunteering provided her with a solid base for building up her skill, her knowledge, and her experience, and the association helped her with her career development. She's always been a strong proponent of making connections and building relationships.
I think my biggest tip for especially young communicators would be to volunteer. Throughout my career, but especially in the early years, I used volunteering, mostly with IABC, as a way to build out my skill base. In your first few jobs, sometimes you're very tightly in a category, and you don't get to explore and do other things to build up your CV. And so for instance, I wanted to gain experience in special events, planning and publicizing and all of the things that surround that. And so I volunteered for the committee in my local IABC chapter to put on the Bronze Quill Awards. And I knew, and it ended up as chair of the committee, which I wasn't qualified to do, but I took it on knowing that there would be enough people on the committee who were experienced and would help guide me through that. And so I gained some really good, valuable skills and knowledge and experience, but also some great relationships with people who were twice my age and had that knowledge and experience, but also had the connections in town. And so through that, not only did I build my own CV, but I developed these relationships that later, when I said, I'm looking for a new job, or how do I develop a whole communication plan, because I'd never done it, I had people to call on, and they knew me and they wanted to help me. And that I repeated throughout my career, and it was probably the most useful thing. So when I say, as I've said many times, that I owe my career to IABC, it's really true. In so many ways, it helped me become the communicator that I became.
And again, before we move on, Brad, we have a comment from Russell saying that he loves the suggestion to build non-communication skills. As senior leaders, we need to advise our organizations on more than just our narrow portfolio, which is so true.
And I love what Barb said about being able to ask people who are twice your age for some sage counsel. I'm finding that a little bit more difficult to do. So I guess I'm looking at this is the payback time. I get to be able to deal with people who are half my age and who probably were still in school when I was doing communication stuff. Maybe not even born, but they're people from all over the world.
Certainly. And as an IABC member, it's great to have connections with colleagues from around the world. We learn from each other. The connections are at local chapters, regional or international conferences, and nowadays, a lot of virtual platforms as well. This network makes the world feel like such a small place. It seems like we soon have friends and contacts from around the world.
Indeed, and one of our many international colleagues is Stephanie Griffiths, ABC. She became a fellow in 2021, the first non-North American chair of IABC's International Executive Board. That was back in 2003, 2004. She's from Johannesburg, South Africa. And she says, as communicators, facilitators, and bridge builders, we must develop the diagnostic skills and capacity to address the needs of people who communicate and understand differently, be this cultural, environmental, or a result of external influences. And by doing so, we will integrate vision, capacity, and compliance and achieve much.
IABC's Gold Quill Awards help to recognize the achievement of communication professionals. To administer that program, there are many blue ribbon panels that review entries. In fact, it is a rigorous process and requires many volunteers. Alice Brink, ABC Fellows Class of 2016, based in Houston, Texas, in the US, is an internationally recognized communications consultant. Her firm, A. Brink & Company, works with businesses and nonprofits to clarify their messages and communicate them in ways that change people's minds. A past IABC Gold Quill chair, Alice has benefited from the excellence of the feedback within that important program. She continues to pay it forward by providing good feedback that can help individuals move forward in their career. Alice sums up her more than 40 years of IABC experience as a process of learning from others and sharing what we have learned to advance the profession.
Hi, I'm Alice Brink, IABC Fellow, and if I could sum up my IABC experience over many decades and why this organization is special to me, I would tell one story, and that's the story of Connie Eckert. When I was new in the profession, I was editing a magazine. I didn't really know a lot about organizational communications. I had a writing background. And I entered the publication in the local IABC Awards program. The judge turned out to be a guy named Connie Eckert, and I had no idea who he was at the time, thought it was a woman actually until I met him. Connie gave me the best feedback on my magazine, from how to get readers more engaged in it, to how to make sure that I really had set clear objectives for what the publication was supposed to achieve. All of these things in the most kind and thoughtful and very targeted way. It was clear that he had looked at the publication carefully, and he was giving me feedback to help me do better. And I did. I took that advice. I changed things in the magazine. I began to learn more about organizational communication. And I think that a lot of my career really stems from that moment and that feedback. So now what I do, and I take that forward, and I try to give that same kind of thoughtful feedback to anyone when I see their work in an awards program. And I try to make sure that I'm giving them the kind of feedback that can help them move forward in their career, like Connie Eckert did for me. Connie's no longer with us, unfortunately, but he lives on. Thank you.
And Connie, as another IABC fellow, was, and no stranger to you, Shel, you work with him and Dave Orman at ARCO, right?
That's right. He was in the cube right next to me.
And it's great, as what Alice points out, to be able to learn from one another and to be able to share experiences and boost everything and participate in things like that awards program. Someone who's really familiar with winning the most prestigious of Gold Quill Awards, the IABC Jake Rittmer Research Award, presented for excellence in research, is a guy by the name of Ned Lundquist, ABC. Ned was named a fellow in 2016. He's a retired U.S. Navy captain, 30 plus years of professional public affairs and strategic communication experience based out of Washington, D.C. He encourages communication professionals to become active at IABC and says his engagement in the association has been a cornerstone as his career has unfolded. In fact, Ned continues to help many within the profession. As an example, each week he publishes a networking, or Nedworking as he calls it, newsletter called JOTW, stands for Job of the Week.
Hi, I'm Ned Lundquist, IABC Fellow, and I want to talk to you just a little bit about the positive and unanticipated consequences of networking, or as I like to call it, Nedworking. I can't say that I've ever received a paid gig as a result of sitting at the table at an IABC meeting, but I have been at that table when several different people I know did walk away with something that resulted in a paid opportunity for them worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, up to $1 million, just because they were there and they met somebody, made that connection. Just about 20 years ago, I started my own newsletter called Ned's Job of the Week, and I was trying to find a job for myself. But I found that making connections for a lot of people resulted in them getting a lot of jobs and opportunities as well. I got 2 paid jobs as a result of that over the course of publishing that newsletter. I can tell you that when you get involved with an organization like IABC, and you volunteer and you become a committee member or an officer and you serve as an awards judge and you get involved at all levels of the chapter and the region and the international board, you find that you're connecting with movers and shakers. And I can tell you that as a result of that, you will find very positive and unanticipated consequences of networking.
You know, Ned really makes a good point about networking and also the fact that our profession has evolved over the years and roles in communication have been changing and challenging. We're going to hear from Neil Griffiths, ABC, from our Fellows class of 2019, who's based in the UK. He's a leader in professional communications around diversity, equity, and inclusion. Neil has built a career working inside organizations of all kinds to transform their cultures. In his time as an IABC member, he's the recipient of numerous IABC awards, including the IABC Ray Hamlin Award and the Chairman's Award.
Neil reminds us that in organizations, there are just so many reasons you might encounter that lead you to believe you should divert from what you know to be the right approach. For example, unsupportive management, fast-moving situations, lack of resources, you're the only voice. There's so many of these factors. He says, whatever the reason, don't succumb. He adds, stay steadfast in your commitment to the right approach, prioritize business strategy, stakeholders, outcomes, resource management, and measurement. These fundamental elements are crucial to becoming a trusted advisor and a dependable collaborator. Despite the occasional loneliness in this journey, aligning with models of communication excellence has elevated my work, team output, and organizational standing. Always choose the fundamentals over other pressures. You'll never regret that decision.
As Neil points out, that communication role has just so many facets to it. And one of them are the skills-based roles that we play. And one of those specific ones is visual communications. And we're going to hear from somebody who specialized in that during much of her career.
Ciao, my
Suzanne
fellow
Salvo.
fellows and anybody else who happens.
Sorry about that.
Oh,
Little quick on the trigger finger, Brad.
That's all right. Let me at least explain who Suzanne is, who's pictured next to us. She's from the class of 2013. She's been involved in so many ways, including at one point, she and her husband, Chris, captured photos of so many IABC members at conferences and elsewhere. They are based now in a small town of Acqua Terme in northern Italy. She's an acclaimed photographer, has talked on the topic a lot. She's also well known as someone who's always had her eye on the entire communication package. Her creative contributions are countless. Her writings and thousands of images over the years for clients and for IABC. She underscores the importance of really keeping pace with the times and embracing change. So let's hear from her. She encourages us to never stop challenging ourselves.
And we will hear from Suzanne now.
Ciao, my fellow fellows and anybody else who happens to be watching in. Suzanne Salvo here. You may remember me from my visually speaking columns and seminars and videos, or maybe those zillions of member photos that we did. I'm happy to report that Chris and I have been retired for nearly 10 years now on our little hillside in Italy, and things are wonderful. I'm so blessed. I'm so lucky. And before I forget, thankful to Brad and Shel for putting together this idea, because it's given me a chance to reflect on how in the world I got here to this particular moment in time. All of us in the IABC tribe are communicators, and to do our very, very best work, we have to be creative. But what is creativity? To create something, something has to change, and change can be difficult, and change can be scary, but that's what you got to do. That's what my takeaway is for my life. Whether it's ziplining through a mountain or leading a meeting or, God forbid, speaking in front of a public audience, all of which I was terrified and all of which I thankfully managed somehow to do. And it's helped me grow as a person, as a personal being. And that, of course, always will translate into your career. And so that's my helpful hint, because I don't think I'm all that wise to pass on anything. Challenge yourself and keep on doing that. Don't matter whether you're retired or not. Challenge yourself to do something big or small, because even if you fail and fall flat on your face, you'll learn something, and that makes it all worth it. So ciao for now, wishing you all the best.
And if you ever get a chance to hear Suzanne sing and her husband Chris play guitar, it's an amazing experience that IBC people have a chance to. In fact, the two of them traveled the world as professional photographers, and they have had great experiences as their careers unfolded, as have many of us. Ian Hawkins, ABC, joined IBC back in 1975, and during this time was a founder member, the president of the UK chapter back in 79, and that was also the year he became accredited. He was named a fellow in 2000, and he served as regional director of Europe, South Africa region, and an international board member in 89-91. He was also the co-chair of the 1987 IABC World Conference when it was held in London, the UK, and served 21 years on IABC's Accreditation Council.
Ian has had an extraordinary 50-year career with some extremely rare experiences, including fish and chips with me in a pub in London. One includes managing media relations for an internationally followed hostage rescue operation in 1990. While this high-level and stressful situation requires tremendous experience and patience, his key lessons in life come from much closer to home. He says, "Always greet the new day with positivity and be glad to be alive. I learned this after 3 major health scares, 2 for me and 1 for my youngest son."
And building on that personal note, that key lesson is some advice from James Lusachevsky, ABC, from the fellow class of 2015. He's based in Minneapolis, Minnesota. He's the author of America's Crisis Guru, the best-selling author, national speaker, trusted advisor. And for more than 40 years, he's been confidentially guiding hundreds of leaders from every standard industrial classification code company and in every US state, Canada, and most of Central and South America. The man gets around. He coaches company leaders through those tough and sensitive situations like the one we heard about from Ian. He teaches executive and managers the lessons that he's learned. And from there, he's gone on to write a lot of books. The next one that's coming out, number 15 for him, with Helio Fred Garcia, is called Influencing Leaders, Why Your Boss Should Listen to You. It's coming out in December of 2024. And here are the great words of counsel from Jim. If it's happiness you are seeking, remember 3 things: civility, decency, and the platinum rule. Help others achieve what they want or need from their perspective. You'll be remembered, thanked, and happy. Another IABC past chair that we're going to listen to is John Finney. He was named a fellow back in 2018. He's been a member of IABC for 39 years. He's based in Windsor, Ontario, Canada. And John says that early in his career, he learned a valuable lesson about delivering the right message versus just providing information. And this is the way he summarizes it. I adopted the mindset that people can remember 3 things. And my challenge was to clearly define the key message, developing 2 supporting perspectives, and meet the "oh, that's interesting" test. And when we asked fellows for some of their advice for others, Cindy Schmieg, ABC, SCMP, said, giving to others has been something she's done for years in all of her volunteer roles, including that at IABC. She's an award-winning strategic communicator. She's based out of Phoenix, Arizona, after many years in Minnesota. Her 40-plus years of corporate agency, consulting, academic experience focus on making that communications function strategic within an organization. She joined IABC 1992. She's an active member, having served on the International Executive Board, the Awards and Audit and Risk Committees, along with being the Pacific Plains Region Director and IABC Minnesota Director. She received her IABC Fellow designation in 2017. And here's Cindy.
Hi, I'm Cindy Schmieg, SCMP and IABC Fellow. At this point in my long career as a communications professional, I think a lot about giving back. After all, I succeeded in what I received from other people that they shared, along with my efforts. But giving back implies repayment. And as I think about my career, I realize that I have been giving since I was an entry-level communicator. So it's not giving back, it's just giving. I was able to share my expertise, even if it wasn't a lot, to help others succeed and to help the organization succeed. So my career advice to you is to think about giving. Go out and find ways that you can share of yourself and grab onto them. Giving is just as relevant today as it ever was, because through giving, you help others succeed and then in turn succeed yourself. You build lasting relationships that will help you throughout your career. And giving is an excellent way to stand out in any organization. Give it a thought.
And Cindy's advice is something we can certainly all embrace. Before we move on, I just want to point out a couple of other comments we've received. Mirko Petricevic has said that he has to leave, but thanks for such an informative and helpful series. And he's looking forward to watching the recording of the second half of this session and to future episodes. It's a nice reminder that this will be available as a video replay and an audio podcast after we're done with this live stream. Also, one of our fellows, Letitia Nervez, says congratulations for this excellent program full of so many valuable and priceless advice from the top communicators in the world. You know, Cindy Schmieg talked about giving. Amanda Hamilton Atwell, ABC Fellows class of 2015, has given plenty of her time as a panelist in our circles, even when the time zone isn't during regular work hours. In fact, well outside regular work hours. Amanda is managing director of Business DNA based in Pretoria, South Africa, providing strategic research and consulting, including communication audits, customer service, and women's leadership topics.
And Amanda's volunteering list is just so long, it's hard to get through. She's past chair of the IABC Gold Quill Program. She's been co-chair of the Career Roadmap Committee. She also served on the International Board. She was a member since 1996. She received the Chairman's Award in 2014. Her accomplishments include a PhD in communications. In fact, I understand she was the first woman in South Africa, in fact, in all the continent of Africa, to be awarded a doctorate in communications science. So from Amanda, she's going to share with us 4 key learnings about the profession.
Hamilton Atwell from Pretoria, South Africa. What would I like to say to you after nearly 4 decades in the communication profession? 4 things. First of all, with communication, everything is possible. Without communication, nothing is possible. And this sound advice was given to me just when I entered the profession, and not by a communication professional, but by a business person. And it is so true, because if we do not have effective communication in an organization, we will not be able to market our products. We will not be able to have teamwork. Our productivity will suffer. And we will not have an organization culture. So know that as a communication professional, you drive the success of an organization. The second thing is know your industry. When you are appointed in an organization, you need to know the organization, you need to know the structures, you need to know every department in that organization, but you need to know the industry as well. It is important that you read wide, that you read outside the communication profession, that you study the industry that you are working in. Otherwise, you will never be an authentic storyteller in that industry. The third thing is we have superpowers. Everybody's talking about superpowers. Our superpower, two of them. First of all, we know how to tell a story. And the second superpower is that we know how to package that story in different communication channels and make sure that organizations and your clients know about these two superpowers. They will take you to success. And the last thing is be curious, stay curious, do research and measurement. If you do research and measurement, you will always have new stories to tell. You will be able to tell stories based on new insights and new organizational facts. The moment you stop doing it, the moment your stories will stop. So stay curious. And then to close, after 4 decades in this profession, I am as passionate about it as I was when I entered it, when I wrote my first report for a daily newspaper. Yes, I started my career as a journalist. Have a great profession. Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk to you.
A lot of us started our careers as journalists.
Yeah, a little bit of radio and television in the background and some writing. It's a great place to get started. And I'm so glad Amanda stays up really late or gets up really early to be able to join our circles. And as Shel outlined at the top end of the program, the circles, which have been going on now for 8 years on a monthly basis, when you think about it, we covered all sorts of topics, dozens of topics. We could probably spend an entire show just rattling off the topics and what it is that we talked about. But the themes and the content are often developed with a specific goal in mind, which is to help candidates prepare for certification. And we'll be talking a little bit more about certification in Circle 101, which will be coming up in February of this year. One of our fellows who became a fellow just in 2022, Zora Artis, SCMP, believes certification and lifelong learning are important. She's a leading alignment, brand, and communication strategist. She's based in Melbourne, Australia. And staying active as a volunteer and giving back to her networks, including as a mentor, has just been fundamental to Zora. She's been active on the IABC Executive Board. She served as Asia Pacific Region Chair, Program Chair for the International World Conference, contributed in so many other ways. Many local IABC chapters have mentorship programs to help individuals at any career level. So Zora shares her 6 tips for communication professionals, emphasizing the merits of mentoring.
On the first Friday of the month, I often join 20 other executive women mentors to walk and talk in Melbourne. We're matched with a few other women at any stage of their career to listen to whatever's on their mind, ask questions and offer advice. It's one of my favourite giving back activities that fills my cup as much as it helps the mentees. So I thought I'd share some of the advice that I often give to mentees. And here are 6 tips in no particular order. Invest in relationships. Your happiness in life and work depends on the quality of your relationships. So take the time to build the best possible ones. Focus on intention and attention. So be clear on what you want in your life, career, and health. Envision and be specific on your goals, whether that's for the next quarter, year, or 5 years. And then you can focus your attention on the steps that you need to take to make them happen. Invest in your network. Do you have the people in your inner circle who will keep you accountable, stretch you, challenge your thinking, be your sounding board, and be your promoter? If you don't already have these people in your circle, they might be within IABC or somewhere else. Understand your business well, its operations, market, the competitors, and factors affecting it. Know your strategic priorities, stakeholders, brand, issues, the language within the C-suite, and the financial metrics, and don't be afraid of numbers. Invest in yourself. So take care of your physical and mental well-being, financial well-being, and of course, your learning. Read widely beyond your profession and take the step to professional certification. And finally, be true to yourself. Understand who you are, what you value, and why, and always act with integrity.
So true.
Yeah, many of our founders have spoken internationally. I have to say myself among them. A number also provide professional executive coaching. One such fellow is Mark Schumann, ABC. Mark is based in Houston, Texas, in the US, and is a PCC, that's a professional certified executive coach from ICF, the International Coaching Federation. In addition to his private coaching practice, he recently joined the faculty of Columbia University coaching program. Mark was IABC's chair in 2009 and 10. He is the winner of, wait for it, 17 Gold Quill Awards, and he became a fellow in 2014. Mark's advice is highly respected internationally. He underscores that truth is to the essential impact our profession can create.
Hey there, Shel, this is Mark, and I just want to thank you for everything you have done for all the years, and especially today as we think about what it has taken to put together 100 of the IABC Fellow Chats. It's an amazing accomplishment and such a collection of wisdom and insights for people around the world to continue learning from for a long time to come. And thank you to Anna for coordinating this every month. I've been very honored the several times over the years to be included in these conversations. And it's always interesting to me how no matter what we talk about, a few fundamentals always seem to find their way into the conversation. And for me, it's the advice I got from my very first boss, who was such a positive touchstone for all of the years. And his favorite expression was, start with truth and then edit. And I've tried to live those words over the years, always focusing on truth and helping people discover the truths that led them to be aware and how they would behave and how they would communicate as leaders. And as I think about what we've talked about in these conversations, we've always told the truth to each other, and we've shared the truth that we consider to be essential to the impact our work can have. So I just want to thank you, Shel, for creating an environment where it is safe for us to talk about whatever happens to be on our minds, to answer your questions thoughtfully and candidly and authentically, and to always share truth. Thank you and congratulations. Bye.
Oh, thanks, Mark.
Yeah, and Mark mentioned it, but a lot of credit to Shel, who's been in that moderator seat more often than anybody. I guess I am number 2 because Shel does get to do some real work and gets to go on vacation with his wife, Michelle. So been glad to sit in. It's also been fun to be in this seat, but neither one of us would be successful if it were not for Anna Willie, whom Mark also mentioned. She has been the person who, I call her the executive producer of this program, because she really lines up the fellows, lines up the topic, and then works on all sorts of things. We've talked about certification, but she's gone through and made sure that when you're studying for your SCMP or your CMP exam and want to learn a little bit more about ethics, exactly which episodes of Circle of Fellows to go back and study, and provided links. So, our hats off, both of us, to Anna Willie for making us look a little bit better than we probably deserve to be.
And I would note that the amount of work she put into this episode goes way beyond the incredible amount of work she puts into a typical episode.
Now, somebody else who has been a regular on the Circle and who's been at yeoman work for IABC is past chair Robin McCaslin, SCMP, Fellows Class of 2022. She's based out of Dallas. She's Senior Director, Corporate Communications for a crowd called Healthcare Service Corporation, which is based in Chicago. She's a former chair of the board. She also has her own podcast, Torpid Liver and Other Symptoms of Poor Communication, where she features guest speakers and addresses really fun, timely topics to help others become better and more influential communication professionals. And Robin underscores the importance of being true to yourself.
I'm Robin McCasland, SCMP, and what I want to share with you is something that is hundreds of years old. It's a simple line that's very well known from Shakespeare's play Hamlet, and it is, "To thine own self be true." Throughout the course of your career and your life, you will encounter situations where you don't feel connected with who you are at your core, where you compromise, where you make concessions. And sometimes that's a good thing because it's good for your career. And you don't need to be all about yourself all the time. But to be truly fulfilled in your career, you're going to come around to, what are your core values? What do you care about most? Do you feel like you're doing the right work, satisfying work for the right reasons? That's really, really important, especially as you get older and you look back on where you are in your career and what you've accomplished. You want to feel like you remain true to that. And if you ever feel like you cannot do that, you're having trouble recentering yourself, ask people you trust, people close to you. Ask them to describe your traits, your personality traits, who they see you at your core. And they're going to surprise you. And they're also going to reinforce what you know to be true about yourself, all those good things that other people see in you too. That is the best advice I can give you, so that when you look back after 30 or 40 years, you can say, I did something and I made a difference and I feel good about that and I'm looking forward to what's next. To that own self, be true.
And it's been throughout the 99 previous circles and in this very process that so many of our fellows have provided their thoughts. Shel, we probably don't have time because I want to hear from you and have a few thoughts of my own. Let's let that spill over to episode 101, where we already have other words of wisdom from fellows. And we're grateful for them spending the time to be able to share it along with their expertise, including this next guy, Les Potter.
Les attributes the IABC network as being key to his career success. In Les's words, I was hired for my first corporate communication job in 1973. My boss, a seasoned professional, gave me this directive: you will join IABC. Puzzled, I asked him, what is IABC? He patiently explained, and I joined immediately. That was the best career move I ever made. He also advised me to get involved. He said, take committee assignments, do special projects, go to workshops and conferences, get elected to leadership positions, and work your way up the chain of command. That way, you will learn even more. Indeed, that was sound advice for Les. He was an active, involved member throughout his career and shared it with countless others along the way. Les attributes much of his success to IABC's professional development programs and networks, and says his greatest learning and his best friendships in life came through IABC. That's something a lot of us can relate to. Thanks for your continued inspiration and lifelong friendship, Les.
Les has been a member since 1973. He's an author, he's a professor, he's a mentor, and for many of us, Les is also a lifelong friend. In fact, for anyone that meets Les, he becomes a friend. So we're not going to have a time to share our ideas, but we'll do it with some other fellows next time around. And as we wind down, the final word from fellows goes to another great friend of ours and IABC, Barbara Puffer from the fellows class of 2012. She's based out of Fort Myers Beach, Florida. And her communication management career has spanned 50 years. She's worked the first 25 in the corporate world and consulted for the next 25. She is also an assistant professor of communication studies for 13 of those years, and this year marks Barbara's 50th as an IABC member. Over the years, she's volunteered extensively within her career, including as a chapter president, a region director, an IEB board member, former chair of the IABC Ethics Committee, former chair of the Research Foundation. The list goes on. She says IABC has always been, in some part, responsible for new jobs and her promotions. Her most important lesson that she shares with us is to always be authentic and truthful, and she models that lifelong learning every day.
My name is Barbara Puffer, and I'm a member of class of 2012 of the IABC Fellows, and proud to be that. 2024 for me is an anniversary. It's 50 years since I joined IABC. You might wonder why one stays in an organization so long, but my reasons are way too many to put into this short little clip of a video. What I would say is early on in my career, IABC offered me the chance to learn management and leadership skills through volunteerism that I wouldn't have learned in those earlier jobs where I had less responsibility and more of a creative assignment. Later in life, though, as I grew to know people from around the world, attend conferences, and even later still, like this time of life where we use technology to visit people in faraway places, I have always been able to pull best practices. Give you a simple idea. I had an annual report once that I needed pictures in Singapore. I'm not in Singapore, I'm in the US. They're not letting me travel there. I don't have the budget for that photographer. You call your IABC colleague anywhere in the world or Singapore and get those photos taken. It's a collaboration that was invaluable to me throughout my career. Another thing is I always received my new jobs or my promotions through some IABC connection. Something I did, someone I knew, always through IABC. So whether you join IABC or you're a member now, or you're involved in other strong professional associations where you can network with colleagues, I just can't describe how important that will be to your career. It's taught me so much. It's not only a friendship network, it's a learning network. And you never stop learning. My 50 years, I have not stopped learning right to today. My most important lesson through my whole career is to always be authentic and truthful. Ethics. I can't emphasize that enough. Ethics. And if you're not experiencing the value of that in a job you have today, you need to move on. As I look back on 50 years, there's just so much I could talk about, so many different subjects. But I was watching a retrospective on the TV program MASH recently and heard a line that's really stuck with me that I would like to use to conclude my thoughts today. And it's this. Sometimes I feel like all of these things happened to a completely different person. IABC has meant so much to me.
And that concludes part one of our two-part Fellows Reflection to start 2024. That's right, we're going to do this again next month with more Fellows contribution. Next month, Circle 101 will take place at noon Eastern Time on Thursday, February 15th, with more thoughts from Fellows, including Adrian Cropley, Diane Gajewski, Russell Grossman, Mary Hills, George McGrath, Jane Mitchell, Bish Mukherjee, Letty Narvaez, who we heard from in the comments today, Angela Sinicus, and more, including Brad, you, and me. So thank you to all of the Fellows who participated in this special episode. Brad, thank you for joining me as my co-host for this. And again, a very special shout out to Anna Willie for the incredible work that she has put into getting this episode together. We'll see you next month.
And thanks to you for joining us. We'll see you next month.